but we do intend to make, there you go. We do intend to make videos available on Cityspan's YouTube channel on this session. And there will be a cheat sheet shared as well. Hi, everyone. Hi, Janet. Hi, Anthony. Hi, all. Good morning. Hey, Mayor. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We've still got quite a few people coming in, so I think we'll just give it another minute or two as people join. And thank you all for making the time to join us today. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So just again, reiterating, we're here today to talk about the Cityspan Invoicing. We're gonna talk briefly. I'm gonna provide a little bit of information. We're going to have a demonstration / training. I say that because it is a pretty, it's not a particularly complicated process. We're just gonna show you a bunch of the different features. And there will be, as I mentioned, there will be a cheat sheet shared and recorded either this session or targeted, clips recorded of how to do the different activities. I do want to just make sure everybody's feeling they're in the right place. We'll be talking about Cityspan Invoicing. So if you're not sure if you're in the right place, let us know. You can put something question in the chat, or we could, you can pop off the call if this isn't for you. So let me go ahead and go on to the next slide. Okay. Wow, I have a spelling error right there at the beginning of the slides. So ways to engage today, not to-da. We're asked that you guys stay muted. It is actually turning out to be a pretty big group. We ask that you go ahead and put questions in the chat. We will probably, try to get through the opening and the demonstration training, and then take some time to go through the questions in the chat and answer any other questions that folks have. So please help us out with that. Again, just a brief agenda. We'll have introductions. There'll be the demonstration. We'll take questions and then just go over a few next steps at the end. Okay, so just want to give you the layout of the invoicing module in Cityspan. The intent of the invoicing module is to allow providers to generate and submit their invoices. Currently, at least for this year and the remainder of this year, will be fee-for-service invoices in Cityspan, based on the attendance that's in Cityspan. So rather than going through a slightly more complicated process of us calculating attendance in our former PCAP system based on the data entered in Cityspan, this will be a more direct process. And also, we hope give providers a little more control over the process as well. Invoices will continue to be due on the 10th of the month. There is no actual, you don't need to send us anything. It'll all be done via Cityspan. Just want to make sure also folks are aware, and this is really important for the conversation between the fiscal staff and the program staff. Once the fiscal staff member or the person who's doing the invoicing submits that invoice in Cityspan between the 1st and the 10th, attendance will lock for the previous month. So I do just want everyone to be aware of that. We've been, I know everybody probably is aware that we've been really pushing providers to do a final QA on their, or quality control or quality assurance on their attendance data by the 5th of the month. We do see a lot of variability in attendance between the 1st and the 10th of the month. So we do know this, we're actually sort of excited to share this struggle with you all. it's really important that we work to get the attendance locked down and not change. And that's partly why we have the attendance locking when the invoice is submitted. If you make a mistake, we are all human and mistakes get made, perfectly acceptable. You just need to request, we can unlock the, unlock either reject invoicing and unlock attendance, or take other steps to allow you to make corrections, including allowing a correction on a prior month's invoice in a future month. Though we don't want that to happen very often. So just be aware that that should not be, that should be a once in a while thing. We really, again, encourage providers to get the attendance firm before submitting an invoice. For the quarterly expense reports, you'll be able to upload those in Cityspan and submit them along with your invoice. We will no longer need to use the invoice cover sheet that we've been using, because Cityspan will produce, initially it's a pretty straightforward PDF that is very much aligned with what you'll see on the invoicing screen. We are working on getting that to in a little bit better shape, to be more of a concrete document that you can download and save as an invoice. But there will be a PDF available of the invoice submission, so you do not need to provide that invoice cover sheet anymore, which I'm sure will be a relief to everyone. Let's see. And then again, there are going to be some reports available in Cityspan for invoicing, some of which are data as of, and some of which are going to be part of the custom reports that take the overnight load. Okay. Again, we're gonna, Deborah, I do see your question. We're gonna, please go ahead and put those questions in as they come to you, and we will circle back around at the end to answer them, so that everybody has a chance to see how Cityspan looks and how it will work. Okay. On that note, I'm going to turn this over to, I'm going to turn this over to Jeremy, and he's going to show us how the invoicing works in Cityspan. I believe I have to unshare my screen, which if I will do that in a second, as soon as I figure that out. There we go.
Well, Jeremy is getting ready. I just wanted to quickly say thank you to everyone for joining us today, and thanks Abigail for going over this stuff. Again, my name is Gulal Nakati. Just wanted to let everyone know this has been a kind of work in progress for the past 2 years now, and it has been a lot of back and forth given all the changes. So we feel pretty comfortable that we have everything we'll need, hopefully, to cover all the aspects of invoicing. And hopefully it's a very straightforward system, and we look forward to hearing more from you and saying if there's any other enhancements we can make. But I think we have done everything we could possibly do at this point.
And Gulal, thank you. On that note, I do just want to remind everybody, we have been piloting this with a group of providers. We are still working on getting some feedback from them. We have been getting feedback, and we've been making some changes and updates, not all of which have fully gone live yet, that are happening in the next couple of weeks. And there are going to continue to be updates and upgrades as we move into the new year as well. So there may be an opportunity, those of you who are on this call who have done our pilot. I know it's been a little limited, but if there's an opportunity to share, or if there are questions that maybe the pilot can ask, I might call on some of you. So, but that would be at the later half of the session. Thanks.
Correct. And definitely, we are definitely open to more feedback, but I just want to make it it is difficult to make a lot of structural changes. So if the changes mostly would be kind of aesthetics of it, or making the workflow a little cleaner, so those kinds of changes, because otherwise on the back end, what we have built is pretty heavy duty, and making big changes is not always easy. So I don't want to upset anyone later. Like
Gulal, you're fading out again. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Maybe it's the speakers in different places. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we are always, we welcome feedback, but there may be instances where some of the requested changes may be more difficult to implement than others. So just be aware of those things, and we'll keep you posted if something is possible and what is possible and what's not possible. So we'll keep that transparent as we move along. So I'll let Jeremy go over, and if I'll chime in if there's anything like high level stuff that I may want to go over, but otherwise, Jeremy, you can take it over.
Great, thanks, Glo. Good morning, everyone. Jeremy Kamshank, the Alex Full-Time Data Coordinator with the Office of Children and Families. So I'm going to do just basically a walkthrough of the invoicing module as it's currently set up in Cityspan. And so here we are in Cityspan, and you'll see on the left menu, there's these 3 new tabs that you probably have not seen before. Contract funding setup, DHS contract, and invoicing. So these are the 3 invoicing tabs. Pretty much all the work that you all as providers are going to be doing is on the invoicing tab, but you do have like view only access to the other tabs if you just want to look up information about your contract. So I can show you what that looks like here on the DHS contract page. So when you come to this page, you will see that the contracts are sort of broken up by each model and funding type. So by funding type, we mean like either general DHS, or if it's a community school program, or specialized. Those are sort of the 3 funding types. And then model, of course, is elementary, middle school, high school. So we have a separate contract set up for each one of those combinations for the given site. And so if you want to view one of those contracts, you can click where it says contract setup. And in your case, you would have a view only access. Because I'm in an admin account, there is edit access in some of these cases. But on this contract setup page, you can view all the information about the contract. You can see how many slots are assigned to this contract. You can see the current invoice payment type, either fee for service or expense-based. You can see the slot rate, the effective rate. So the effective rate is basically the amount that is can be billed per slot per month. And then you can see what the total calculated contract award is for the entire year, or this is entire school year. And then you can see the effective invoice month. So is this, in other words, when this contract started taking place. So I will go back to the previous page. If there are any revisions to contracts over the course of the school year, those show up as shown here. So it says revision, and it says the month when that revision first took effect. And so similarly, if you go into that revision, you can just view what the current information is for the contract based on that revision. So next, I will go to the invoicing page. And on the invoicing page, we have everything split up first by month. So you can see these kind of expand or can be hidden. But then under the month, you have it broken out again by model and funding type. And so after that, you can then see the invoices for each of those models. And so for example, like this one here would be the October invoice for elementary at general DHS. And so basically,
can I just chime in on
Sure.
For a minute and just add that for providers who have multiple sites, these are site-based activities. So when you're in a site, you're seeing the invoicing for that site, and then of course, as Jeremy implied, there, depending on what model you have, you may only have one of these, one model and strategy. So you would only have one sort of set of contracts and invoices. But if you have two models at a site or 2 strategies at a site, you might see more in that in those folders.
Right. Yeah, and also, so only designated staff at each provider will have access to these invoicing module tabs. And so we have been collecting information about which staff will need that access on the Cityspan user lists that we keep track of for each agency. So I think all but like 3 or 4 providers have given us that information, but definitely double check those user lists and make sure that the information is up to date, and send those to Gulal and I, and we will make sure that the right staff have access to this module. So then when you're ready to review and submit invoices, you would come to this page. Again, just obviously you want to make sure that all of your attendance is entered completely before that for each of your programs that you're going to submit invoices for. But then once that's complete, you would come to this page and then click on invoice for the given month and model. And so then you will see this invoice form. And because this is a fee for service invoice, which I believe at this point, pretty much all the programs are fee for service for when we'll be starting to do invoicing for the month of December. So the way fee for service invoices work is that the slots utilized gets calculated automatically based on the attendance that has been entered to Cityspan. So in this case, we have a program that has 10 slots assigned to it for elementary school. And in the month of October, they've used 11 slots. And so because this year there's sort of this baked in allowance to go 10% above your contracted slot level, you can see it shows you what that contracted slots plus 10% comes out to right here. And so in this case, because they did use one more than their slot level, and that is within the 10% above, they can invoice for that 11 slots utilized. And so the invoice total that's being calculated here is based on 11 slots utilized times that effective rate per slot. And then that gives you this invoice total. Now, if you do end up overutilizing it, you going even beyond that 10%, like if they used 12 slots or more than that, it would show the actual number of slots utilized here, whatever the actual attendance was, but the invoice total would be capped at whatever the level is based on the 10% above slots level. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you do overutilize beyond 110%, the slots utilized may show a higher number, but the invoice total will be capped. Just to point out some other information that's available on this page, you can again see the total contract award. You can see how much was remaining on the award, not including the current invoice, not including this October invoice. And you can see after this invoice, how much money would be available still for the rest of the year. And this calculation is basically showing you like the maximum amount that you would be able to invoice for the rest of the school year. And so that's both taking into account the 110% maximum each month, as well as your total contract award. Like you can never go beyond the total school year contract award, even if you overutilize. You know, if you do 110% every month, at some point you're going to run out of funds just because of the total contract award. And so these calculations here will take into account that maximum. So then basically, really all you have to do for the fee for service invoices is come to this page, make sure that your attendance is complete and make sure that everything looks right. And then once you're ready to submit, you would just click on the submit button up here. And I believe we will be adding some language down here that basically says, like, I attest that all the information above is correct. So it is kind of like a formal submission of this invoice. So I will do that. We have noticed that this submission is taking a little bit of time right now. Wasn't too long actually, but if you do click on that and it takes some time to load, just make sure that you just kind of let it load. It doesn't necessarily show that it's loading, but eventually it will take you back to this page once it's done. And so now you can see we've submitted this invoice and it shows in green here submitted. And so then the next step would be for PHMC to review this submitted invoice. And once they review it, if they approve it, then this will change to show as is seen here. So it says submitted as approved. And so that's how you know that then PHMC has approved that invoice and it's now on its way over to their accounting system to go through the payment process. However, if they reject your invoice for some reason, then it will show up a little bit differently here. And there's an example here under elementary community schools. It says prior versions. And if you click right there, it will expand to show you, in this case, there's a prior version of this month's invoice. And you can see that it was submitted as rejected. And so this is showing you that this invoice was submitted, but then PHMC rejected it. And if you click where it says invoice PHMC, you can then look to see what the reason for rejection was. So on this page, there are a few questions listed here. Is the attendance complete? Is the expense report complete and accurate? Does the amount of the invoice and the amount reported in the expense report match and meet requirements? Or are there any other reasons that this invoice cannot be approved? So you can check these questions just to see what the reason was why the invoice was rejected. But then if you need to resubmit this invoice because it was rejected, you would just simply come back to this page and then go to that invoice for that model again, and then just resubmit it. Obviously, after correcting any changes, whether maybe you need to update your attendance or if you need to make some updates to your expense report, which I am not showing here, but I will show you what that looks like as well. So depending on your contract, you may need to upload expense reports either quarterly or monthly. And the way that that works is that there's an upload section down at the bottom of the invoice. And so this is actually a different type of invoice. So let me just point that out too. So this is an expense-based invoice. And so at this point, I don't think any of you are expense-based, as far as I know. Is that right, Abigail? But this would be, for example, in September when a lot of the contracts were expense-based. And the main difference here is that instead of the invoice total being calculated automatically, it is basically a field that you enter yourself. So you would, complete your expense report and then figure out what the invoice total should be and enter that here. And then below in the expense report section, there's a file upload section. So you can find your file for your expense report. It does have to be an Excel file. That's required in order for this to be submitted. But then once you find the file, click on upload. And then you can enter your invoice total and then submit. And so this file upload may show up also on some fee-for-service invoices, just again, either monthly or quarterly, depending on your contract. So now again, we have a submitted invoice here for high school.
Jeremy, if I could just weigh in real quick again. So everybody will see and have an upload for their January invoice submission because everyone is on a quarterly expense report submission process. So just everyone should expect to see, even though it is a fee for service invoice, you'll have that upload when you do your invoicing in January for December, because that is the end of the quarter.
Right.
And Jeremy, could you, I don't know, I know you don't, may not have an example, but could you speak a little bit about the alerts and the PDF we're working on?
Sure, yeah, so when an invoice gets submitted, an email will automatically be sent to PHMC as well as to anyone who's designated as like a fiscal administrative user for your agency. And so you'll receive that email. It basically just says, this invoice was submitted. Here's the invoice total that was submitted for this month. And included in that email will be a PDF. That's basically, it's more or less just a printout of this page, this invoice page. And so you'll have that available, which you can print out. And then if PHMC does reject an invoice like this, that will also generate an automatic email, which again will go to the designated staff for each agency who have the invoicing module access. And we also eventually will be adding a button directly onto the invoice page, allowing you to print the invoice from this page as well.
We expect that to be there as we roll this out for everyone.
Yeah. One other thing that I can show, I know we mentioned the attendance locking, so I can just show you what that looks like. So again, as soon as an invoice is submitted, any attendance, actually any attendance for that site gets locked. So even, for example, if you have elementary and middle school at the same site, submitting either one of those invoices will lock attendance for all activities, all DHS funded activities, I should say, for that site. And when I say lock, what it looks like, it basically just makes it so that you can't edit the attendance anymore for that month.
Jeremy, if we reject an invoice, does that unlock it for them?
I believe so. Actually, I would have to double check that. If not, there's just another step that has to be done in order to unlock it. But yeah, so PHMC and or Gulal and I do have the ability to unlock attendance if needed. But this is what it looks like. So for example, if attendance has been locked for a month, then when you come into the attendance form, you'll see all these X's. And as you can see, you can't actually change the attendance anymore for this month.
I think, Jeremy, if I remember correctly, I believe, Abigail, that you will have to manually unlock the attendance. I think because the reasoning for rejection may be different than the attendance itself.
Right, yeah.
I'm sure that's not going to happen at all because all the attendance is going to be perfect and will be no issues, and we will not have to go to unlock or make any changes.
Yeah, and so that's really an overview of the process. I mean, hopefully it's fairly straightforward. Again, basically to submit an invoice, you just come to this invoicing page, you find the right month and the right model, click on the invoice page, and then if it's fee for service, you just double check that everything is correct and submit. Or if it's expense-based, you enter the invoice total. And in either case, you might have to do the upload for the expense report. And then after that, you just, hopefully PHMC accepts it, assuming that everything is good. If not, it shows up as rejected. So you just have to come back here again and resubmit after fixing any issues. And one other thing to point out is just that you can't submit invoices for the following month until the prior month's invoice has been accepted. So that generally shouldn't be an issue, but just to be aware of. Yeah, I guess
Right.
anything else, Skulal?
Yeah, I was just saying, like, overall things, like some of the rules we have in place for attendance as well is like,
Yep.
Anyone to be counted towards invoicing, they have to be Philadelphia-based resident or DHS involved. They have to have a means test worksheet in place, and once PHMC approves an invoice, it cannot be changed. I think that's really more for PHMC. They'll have to make those adjustments in the following months then. So yeah, so those are like some of the general rules. And PHMC, if they have to make any revision, that there cannot be any outstanding invoices, and any revisions are only forward moving. They cannot make revisions for what has already been invoiced. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, and
So-
yeah, that's it. Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's a good point. So the slots utilized is definitely taking into account those restrictions. So it's only counting students with at least 1 day of attendance who are either Philadelphia residents or marked as DHS involved. And if you want to kind of double check if you have any students who don't meet those conditions, you can run the participant compliance report, which is available on the custom reports page. And it will list for you any students who are both non-Philadelphia residents and also marked as non-DHS involved, because those participants would then not be counted towards this number here.
Jeremy, what reports will be available for the providers? I'm assuming in the one we've been developing in the DHS custom reports, they'll be able to see their sites and invoicing information there. Are there admin reports available to them as well?
At this point, admin reports are not available to them, but we can think about whether we want to make some of those available. But yeah, we are definitely working on some reports that will give you all access to be able to see for each month and for each model, kind of in a spreadsheet form, how much you've invoiced for, how much money is remaining, all of that sort of stuff.
And also dates, like the dates submit. I think the dates,
Right.
submitted dates and approval dates are in there as well.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I think, Jeremy, while you still have your screen up, I thought we maybe go through the questions just in case any of them require a quick pivot to look at something in Cityspan. So one of the first questions here is how will this work if one person prepares the invoice and one person is the authorized submitter? So the expense report preparation obviously takes place completely outside of Cityspan and it's only uploaded. So I think there is, depending on your organization structure, there is the opportunity for someone to prepare the expense report and then somebody else to upload it. If a staff member also needs to prepare the invoice, but somebody else will be the one who actually clicks submit, it is possible for someone to go in and for one of the users, the fiscal users, to go in and review the invoice information, the fee for service. You can upload your expense report, or if it's not it's not a quarterly month, you can simply review the information in the invoice, and then you can save it. And that is not the same as submitting. That is simply just saving. And then and then another staff member could come in and do the submission process, but both would have to be designated as fiscal users in Cityspan for that to work. So just be advised. You may have to work on, you may have to revisit internal systems in order to support this process. And if you need technical assistance or support in that, I encourage you to email your contract specialist so that we can get started on that right away. I do have a tip for everyone, a bit of information. If you received the email from the OST email this morning about this session with the Zoom link, then you are already listed as a fiscal user in the Cityspan permissions. It's just not live yet. So if you're going in and looking to see if you can see invoicing, it's not live yet. We are still making a few changes, and we don't want to make it live until those are complete. And also invoicing won't actually start until January 1, but we expect to be opening it up in the next 2 weeks to users. But we just want to make some changes, and since the changes cause emails to all the designated users, we are, we don't want to have you to suddenly get 15 emails, auto-generated emails before as we're getting things ready. And what we're getting ready is we are preparing Cityspan so that when you step in on January 1 with the December invoice, the previous information that was submitted for September, October, and November is already available in the system. So that's why we're holding off on making that live while we make all of those updates across the system. So again, if you did receive an email around 7:30 this morning from OST with the Zoom link, you are already listed as a user in the system. You just aren't live yet. If you didn't receive that email, then you're probably not, and you should check back with, as I think Galal said at another point, you should check back with your with whoever in your organization is designated to manage that process to make sure that your permissions are updated.
I also wanted to quickly add, I don't know if maybe Jeremy already said that on the invoice itself, we'll also have a link to a report. Once PHMC approves the invoice, that report will list all the youth whose attendance was counted, kind of a receipt or proof of the kids who were basically who were invoiced for.
Galal, you're fading out again, but I think if I can paraphrase,
Yeah, go
For
ahead.
those of you who currently receive the PCAPS invoice, you get a PCAPS invoice and then you get a second PDF that lists all of the children that were counted in that invoice. Basically working on recreating the same thing in Cityspan. So again, there will be a PDF. Initially, it will be a slightly simplified version showing you, as Jeremy showed you, essentially everything that's on the screen, including I'm pretty sure that it will include the user who submitted the invoice. And then going forward, we'll get that a little more sophisticated to look a little bit more, have a little more of a look of an actual invoice document. So we're working our way through that. Let me look at those questions again. So I think, Deborah, I think your question was already answered. It's mentioned that if attendance locks when the invoice is submitted, can you look at the invoice for a month, say on the 2nd, but not submit until everything is updated? And the answer is yes. As Galal mentioned, you can go in and view the invoice. You can also save it multiple times. It updates each time you save. So if you're looking at an invoice and it doesn't seem to match what you believe is in the system, you can hit save and it will update, and then you can review it again. And that is not the same as submitted. There was a question about, will Cityspan send an alert if an invoice is rejected? Yes, it sends an alert to all of the individuals who are listed as fiscal users. We are asking agencies to limit that to about 3 people or less. We don't want, we want to make sure that this is not permission you give to, everyone in your organization, because they could submit an invoice on your behalf if they have access. So we are asking organizations to limit this to the key staff who need access to invoicing features. And then those staff will receive an email when an invoice is submitted and when it's rejected, and I believe also when it's approved. Jeremy Galal, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, okay, if it's approved.
Yeah.
The quarterly expense report and invoice total is limited to 110% of attendance, correct? No, that is not correct. I want to make sure everybody is very clear on this. We are going to spend a little bit of time on it at the provider meeting tomorrow as well, but the expense report is capped at the amount of funds invoiced year to date. So that can vary depending on your organization and where you stand with your attendance and in enrollment activities. So you already have September. That can't change because that was an expense-based month. You'll be submitting for the next quarter, which will include monthly expenditures for October, November, and December, and it is capped at the amount invoiced year to date. That may be challenging for some of your organizations who have had, it's been a difficult year. I know some folks have had some low attendance numbers. You may have to sort of limit and again, cap what you report on the expense report, because you cannot report an amount greater than the invoiced year to date. But you can, as your program grows in its enrollment and attendance, and again, hopefully gets to that 110%, you can report prior month expenditures in later quarters if you need to make adjustments, because at the end of the fiscal year, at the end of the school year, your final expense report must balance. Equals expenses equal revenue, no variance. So just keep that in mind. It is a very complicated dance for you all. We stand ready and available to provide any TA and answer any questions you have. There's opportunities for budget revisions. That'll be now through April 30th. Again, I really encourage you, if you have questions, we have been on the phone with and Zoom meetings with providers this week about questions about their fiscal reports and status. We are more than happy to do that and would much prefer to have conversations now and through the next few months than be backtracking in May and June. So the question was if December was fee for service or expense based. The remainder of the contract year is fee for service. It's just that you also have to submit an expense report. That expense report is not an opportunity for you to increase your invoice or anything like that. It is simply a reporting feature showing how you've expended the funds invoiced in this quarter. You can, in this quarter, you can underspend. Just want to make sure that's clear. In this quarter and the next quarter, you may have underspending, but it has to balance by the end of the year. So just be mindful of that. Yes, I feel like Deborah, I hope you got me. Expense reports for January cannot exceed the total revenue received to date. You can be under expended, and some providers might be, but you cannot be over expended. If any of our pilot members want to provide some encouraging words or tips for what their experiences were, I do caution our pilots, we are still going to solicit input from you. So that's not this venue, but if you have tips or something you want to share with the providers about the experience in being in the pilot, can you go ahead and I think you can unmute yourself. If not, you might have to raise your hand and Naomi will unmute you so that you can share any thoughts. We do have one hand raised. I don't know if this is for a question or for feedback on the but I have gone and you can unmute. Joanne, if you want to unmute and share your question or concern. Anyone else? I know we have some pilot group people on here, so. Okay, Ivy, I was expecting you to raise your hand.
So, hello, everybody. At first, it was a little confusing, but again, there were some glitches. And so once those glitches were worked out, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you're not really doing anything different except just the way that you're submitting things. So it wasn't difficult. And I know if you have questions, Abigail is always available to be able to answer those. Just try not to wait till last minute. I think that's the best advice.
And your contract specialists are also available to answer questions. You guys do not have to ask.
Oh, sorry, Abigail. Yeah, go to your contract specialist first. Always CC Abigail though. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward once you just get comfortable with actually the Cityspan dashboard of invoicing. I mean, you're not doing anything different. I think it gets a little confusing if you have too many hands in the pot. Right? I think if you have one or two people just doing it, it makes it a lot easier because then you just feel more secure. But other than that, it was straightforward. Thanks.
Thanks, Ivy. Anthony, do you want to, I know you put it in the message, but if you want to share any thoughts. And I'm not sure who else we might have from the pilot group. I'm just scrolling through who's on the. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna, Jeremy, I think if you can unshare, I will go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, everybody can see. So next steps. So again, this is a great opportunity to, now that you've, a lot of you may have updated permissions for Cityspan without having seen this. So this is a good moment to regroup and make sure that you have the right people designated as your Cityspan users. Again, if you received the email this morning from me, from the OST email box, but it was, I think it might have had my name on the signature line. With this link to this Zoom session, you are a fiscal user. If you don't think you should be, please contact your the lead in your organization who manages Cityspan. If you did not receive that email and you think you should be a Cityspan user, please also contact your the lead in your organization who's managing this process. Accessing to the invoicing module will be live in the next 2 weeks. So at some point between now and the end of the year, you'll either receive, if you have never been a Cityspan user before, you'll receive your login credentials via email. If you are an existing user, you will see those invoicing and contracts tabs appear in the menu on the left. One thing I know we've all been struggling a little bit with, that we all struggled a little bit with in September when we did the last expense report, is that we inadvertently had some of the cells locked. At the bottom of the cell, at the bottom of the expense report, there are cells where you can enter the invoice amount for each month. So, and that helps you calculate, your end result to make sure that you are balanced or not overexpended. I believe, I know we had some back and forth. Some organizations were just went ahead and submitted. Because the expense report remains in your control, you're going to have to proactively reach out to your contract specialist and do that little bit of back and forth. And now's the time to do it, to make sure those bottom cells are unlocked so that you can enter the invoice amounts. And again, you do have that information. You've been doing the invoicing, so you can enter in what the fee-for-service invoices were for September and October. For October, November, and eventually December. But we want to get that sorted out now so that when you submit your expense reports in January, you're already able to do that and see where the balance is. Because the one thing that Cityspan doesn't let us do is we can't edit your expense report and then reshare it with you in Cityspan. We can only do that via email. You can send it to us and we can receive it, but we can't make changes and get it back to you. So it's best to try to get that done now. Hopefully, if there's questions about that, let me know. Okay, and then as mentioned, we will be sharing out a cheat sheet. We'll probably do that possibly next week. I want to make sure that we send it to you like sort of as a just-in-time document so that it's not something you're, invoicing is still a couple weeks away, and there's a holiday in between, and a lot of emails probably going to be in your email box on January 3rd or 4th when you get back into your office. So I just want to make sure that we get it to you at a time where you are able to save it and keep track of it. Either we'll send it out next week and then again sometime the week of the 4th. That's probably what we'll do. And then it will be available in Cityspan as well, where all the cheat sheets are available in the help menu in the resource section. And also, again, we'll be posting a video about the invoicing process on Cityspan's YouTube channel. For those of you who might be, who are just going to be starting using Cityspan with this fiscal responsibility, there are lots of other videos on Cityspan, introductory videos, sort of Cityspan 101. So if you have, if you want to, peruse those during some downtime, if there is any, they are available to you. And then just noting, we will reject any invoices received before January 1st. So if anybody's trying to get a head start, please don't. We will not be accepting them. Invoicing really won't open until the beginning of January. Any final questions? Thank you, Anthony and Chiquita, for also chiming in the chat box with the positive experiences. I do think it will be, a help to all of us. I think it will be a little rocky in January, getting used to this. I'm sure we're going to have questions, but I think it will be, I think it will be helpful and to all of us in managing the invoicing activity for the OST program. I think there's one more slide. Nope, that's it. That's the end. So thanks, everyone. again, reach out to your contract specialist if you have specific questions about your information. Oh, Carmen, you have a question about entering data and not submitting. Again, you can go in there into the invoice feature. You can review what's in there. You can upload your document and you can save but not submit. You can do that before January 1. But again, if you're going to be doing anything with attendance between now and January 5th, you might not want to, you need to make sure your attendance is right before you submit. That is one thing we really encourage providers to do. Okay, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Hey, Naomi, I forgot to request this, but is there, because I maybe should have done this beforehand, is there any way to print a list of everybody who was a participant?
It should show up in the Zoom. Once I close out, I'll go to our account and I'll double check, but we should be able to see. And I'll also, let me save the chat.
I did that as well
Okay,
too. Though
perfect.
honestly, they're minimal questions, which is great. Galal,
Right.
Jeremy's already gone. Galal, please thank Jeremy for us. Obviously, the fact that there weren't very many questions is a testament to his review and demonstration.
And then you did record this
Yes.
demo, so we'll still make some kind of.
Oh, you're still recording now, so don't.
Oh, yeah.